for sale here in the U.S. Americans ate 75 billion pounds of red meat and chicken last year. But what if some of that meat wasn't raised on farms, but created in high-tech facilities? Scientists say it could be better for the environment and our health and could soon be on menus and shelves around the country. ABC's Devin Dwyer has that story.
This morning, the USDA has approved cell-cultivated meat to be sold to the public for the first time.
So that's where it all starts, just a few cells.
2 cultivated meat producers now getting the green light to begin commercially selling their chicken, not raised on a farm, but in a facility. The meat is grown using real animal cells and large bioreactors fed with nutrients. I recently got a tour of California-based Upside Foods, the nation's first and largest cultivated meat producer.
You're making chicken in there.
Yeah, so if you look at this is approximately a 200+ liter tank. And we take cells from a chicken or an egg. It takes 2 weeks to grow the equivalent of 1 chicken, 1,000 chickens, or 100,000 chickens.
So you're saying in this factory you can make more meat faster and cleaner than an average farmer?
Well, ultimately, yes.
The company says cell-cultivated meat could help feed the world's booming population using a fraction of the land and water of animal farming and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Many experts say more study is needed.
The company expects to roll out cell-cultivated chicken in restaurants first, then on store shelves in the next 5 years. Hundreds of startup companies are getting in on this game. The big question now is, will consumers buy it? Mona?
American cities this holiday weekend, bringing the total number of mass shootings so far this year to over 300. CBS's Elise Preston is in Los Angeles with more on that. Elise?
Jerika, much of that violence happened at parties crowded with teenagers. Multiple mass shootings where the victims were just kids.
A violent holiday weekend. Los Angeles authorities are on the hunt for the gunman who opened fire at a house party, wounding 8, most of them teenagers.
I know this is graduation season, as well as this weekend we're celebrating Father's Day as well as Juneteenth. We want you to feel safe.
Mass shootings erupted in several communities across the country. Outside Chicago, 1 person died and at least 22 others were injured after gunshots rang out at a Juneteenth celebration. In St. Louis, the community is heartbroken after 1 teen was killed and 9 others were shot at a party.
The violence these children experienced last night is intolerable and unacceptable.
So far this year, nationwide, more than 800 children and teenagers have been killed by gun violence. Josh Horowitz with the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions says firearm homicides are up 45% in the last few years, with guns being the leading cause of death for children and teens. But he's hopeful there are ways to combat the public health issue.
We also think limiting access to firearms in public is important. And of course, investing in community violence intervention programs will pay dividends and save lives.
Horowitz says while it is a balancing act, it is possible to have lawful gun ownership and make the country safer at the same time. Jerika?
All right, Elise Preston on that important report there in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Pursue adult charges against those teens. We wanted to take a look at the approach to juvenile crime here in D.C. D.C. police reports young people make up 59% of recent carjacking arrests. Latonya Inman sat down with D.C.'s Attorney General to find out what accountability actually looks like.
When a young person is arrested for a crime, their case is heard here at family court. But the Attorney General says the legal system isn't always the answer.
When kids make mistakes, commit crimes, sometimes very serious crimes, we have to hold kids accountable by prosecuting kids. And that's what we do every day when we have sufficient evidence.
The D.C. Attorney General's office is working with MPD to make that happen with a 24-hour hotline. Detectives call prosecutors to make sure they collect enough evidence that can be used in court.
Oftentimes, we ask the court to detain young people because we think it's in their interest and the interest of the public to do that. Sometimes kids need to be sat down. But we can't share the specifics of the case because it's not lawful to do so.
While their crimes impact the community the same, Attorney General Brian Schwab says there is a difference between the juvenile justice system and the adult system.
And one of the ways we commit to kids in a little bit of a different way than we commit to adults is we are committed to protecting the public safety and engaging in an effort to rehabilitate.
That's where diversion programs like the Alternative to Court Experience comes in. ACE is offered to low-level offenders who get monitoring and family support.
Our system has repeatedly failed them long before they show up in the criminal justice system. So of course parents and families play a role. Our support of parents and families is critical, and holding parents and families accountable as well.
What worries the AG the most? That offenders are getting younger and the crimes more serious. But he says the crime stats don't tell the entire story.
We have about 50,000 young people between ages 10 and 17 in our city. Less than 500 are justice system involved. That's less than 1% of the children in our city. 99% of the kids in our city are doing extraordinary things, oftentimes against extraordinary odds.
The Attorney General and a number of advocates that I've spoken to say it's about changing the narrative around how we talk about juvenile crime, knowing these are children who need to be held accountable, but also, in many cases, deserve a second chance at rehabilitation. Outside of family court, Delia Gonsalves, W.
Wants his two law enforcement commissioners to address violent juvenile crime.
It resulted in a summit of more than 50 chiefs of police, county sheriffs, and county prosecutors from the 7-county metro area.
As Jake Halls explains, it's the first of many meetings to come with the comprehensive plan to fix juvenile crime.
Images like these, cars stolen by kids as young as 11, some at gunpoint, have become a familiar scene over the past few years.
What we were seeing was just really astounding. The level of crime at such a young age, the potential for violence.
It's something Governor Tim Walz wants to stop, and he wants Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson and Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell to address it.
What did the governor specifically ask for? What was the governor hoping to get out of it when he suggested you guys do this?
Well, I think the governors wanted just us to start the discussion and come up with some action steps. I think what the governor wanted us to do is to make sure that we're paying attention to some of the biggest issues that we're facing, especially in the metro area.
That led to a big juvenile crime summit with more than 50 law enforcement leaders across the metro meeting together on June 1st. The big takeaway, Jacobson says, accountability for violent crimes.
How do we work together to piece together a good strategy to help these children and these families so that there are better outcomes? Because right now it's a scary situation.
BCA numbers show between January and April, 85 juveniles have been arrested for weapons violations and 58 for car thefts in the 7-county metro area. Washington County Attorney Kevin Magnuson was at the summit and agrees. He says accountability is key.
We have to get a handle on auto theft. by juveniles. We just have to make that a priority. And then we have to address firearm problems.
And he says sharing criminal information across county lines, something that doesn't happen right now because they're dealing with juveniles.
Often we're picking up the phone, calling people just saying, hey, can you look up a record, because we don't have the ability to do it ourselves. And we're under tremendous pressure to charge in a small amount of time. And that information is vital.
Public Safety Commissioner Jacobson says this first summit was to share information and just begin the process. The next meeting, he says, will be more focused on coming up with ideas and concrete plans that then can be shaped into policy to help stem that rising tide he talked about of juvenile crime. No date is set yet for that next summit meeting. Reporting live in the newsroom, Jay Coles, 5 Eyewitness News.
Also new this morning, we are working to learn more about an incident on I-94 in Woodbury.